During this college quarter, he was continually placing ads in the paper for a girl. His latest response was a girl named Christine, 24 years old, from Wilmington. She had dark curly hair, was just a little shorter, and agreed to meet Ken at Bennigan's restaurant. She had the kind of honest sense of humor which Ken could appreciate. She noticed Ken continually scratching his facial hair. As he was growing a beard at the time, he asked her if she was impressed by him, and whether or not she would want to get together with him again. "Ken, if I think you're worth seeing again, I will definitely let you know," she said. She seemed like an independent type of girl, living on her own, paying $500 a month rent, and working as an administrative assistant. She, like many others before her, would be one of those who would not call back on her own, and after this, Ken just moved on to see if he could meet some more girls. With all that was going on, he was making time to continue practicing with the band. He would remain strictly with the keyboards. At one point, Pat wanted to get the band to learn Kristen as part of their list of originals. Pat would continue to get frustrated, especially when it meant not getting past one song. "I want us to nail down multiple selections, or this, that, and that, etc., not just thrice over and over again. We've got a lot to offer here." As part of promoting themselves, they took a series of pictures of themselves with Beaver Valley as a background setting. These images would be seen of people out in the public along with business cards for the group. Pat often got into arguments with Charles, the bassist, but a few times it would be Dez who would be the target of his wrath. Once he banged on his cymbal and started screaming at the top of his lungs regarding Dez's style disagreements. Dez, who was an artist, was also aspiring to make it in that, but Pat put his talent down when he was in that bad mood. "All you draw is just like tits and asses?" Pat said. "I can take you to teasers, Dez, and you can get some real live ones." While all this was taking place, Ken got updates on the Tri-County Theater, and learned that Brad Sibick would be returning as the manager. It led to Ken considering whether it would be a good idea to go back there. He had missed Brad Sibick. He'd only seen him a few times visiting the theater or attending a manager's meeting. Within time, Ken would celebrate his 23rd birthday. He and his sisters had gotten tickets to see a stage production of Jesus Christ Superstar, with two of the original cast members, Ted Neely and Carl Anderson, reprising their roles in the movie version, now getting together for a live stage version. They saw the show in Philadelphia, and it certainly did not disappoint. They managed to meet members of the cast backstage, including Ted himself. He stopped to talk and comment on the pictures they showed, and showed how affable and gracious he was. Ted stopped to pose for pictures, and at one point noticed Ken standing aside, and asked, "Did you want to join in with us? You can." As a result, Ken got to appear with a group that included Ted Neely. With graduation requirements being so close, he decided to load up on his spring quarter coursework in order to complete them in a timely manner. During the same time period, he managed to drop off an application for the University of Delaware. After noticing the deadlines for applications rapidly approaching, it was the appropriate time to consider where, if any place, he would like to pursue his bachelor's degree. His grades for the winter quarter consisted of A's and B's. It would be time for him to sign up for his final quarter of classes, the spring quarter. This time around, he would sign up for 6 classes, taking advantage of his full-time status with the scholarship he had obtained. The courses he selected were typing, sales management, psychology, law for business, data processing, and marketing management applications. There was concern over whether he would get the time slots he signed up for after waiting in a long line. As he'd done before to sign up, the man working the registrar's station came back. "You got every one of them, and I don't envy you a bit," he said, noting how many courses Ken selected. Ken continued to work at the Conkerville Movie Theater with Ted Kirby, Mark Barkevsky, and Joe Giordano in management positions. They provided him and some staff a special screening of the movie Groundhog Day starring Bill Murray. Mark commented on how the character Ned Ryerson reminded him of Myron. When Chris Elliott was on the screen, he commented, "That guy's a loser. He was on that show, remember?" He was referring to the show Get a Life. When Ken watched the movie a few times, he seemed to identify to the situation of repeating over and over regarding the personal ads. He'd go through the same routine of getting a response, meeting a girl, going on a date, and then not getting another, or never being able to reach her again, rinse, repeat, etc. He would change or update his greetings every now and then, sometimes using his song lyrics as poetry. He'd use the words, "I've never seen you before, don't get much from your voice, but I have this conviction that you are the right choice." This didn't seem to have a big impact on his responses, but he kept trying, as it seemed like his only way. His spring 1993 classes began with a man named Mr. Davis as his sales management teacher. He was 42, wore glasses, and a mustache. This class did not seem too intimidating. But he wasn't taking chances. He still paid close attention in class. Dr. Trevino was the assigned teacher for marketing management applications. Ken knew this class would be a more challenging one, and he sensed it from the syllabus. This class started out with much lecture, and would move on to case studies for the class to discuss weeks later. Ken was also on the lookout for another job, either to replace the movie theater or to supplement the income. He stumbled upon an opportunity to deliver for the local newspaper. It would be an extra weekend edition to be delivered to selected houses. Ken would meet up with a former college classmate, Anthony Medina, and he would explain the job to him. The job involved carrying a list of houses in the Wilmington area, and a supply of News Journal extra editions for the weekend. Ken had gone through the list and all the locations seemed pretty overwhelming to him. There was a lot of confusion as to where these street addresses could be found. Ken consulted with his dad about it, whom he remembered as having a paper route himself he used his car for. His dad described it as at times being like hell and stressful. The process involved Ken driving to the Newcastle warehouse to pick up his packs for delivery over the course of the weekend. When he gave them a call, he told them that he didn't think it would work out very well. It turned out that Bobby Spisak, the brother of Suzanne's friend Debbie Spisak, was one of the people managing the project. Ken had run into him from time to time over the years, as he was also a member of the church youth group led by Gus Balakian years earlier. This time he managed to get Ken out of any binding contracts to deliver this paper. Although he didn't pursue this second job as an option, it would not be his last opportunity at this kind of gig. Months would have to go by first. At the movie theater, he was working with an interesting new roundup of people, including a friend of TJ's named Ken Kintner, a girl named Kristen, but not Willard. Her last name was Tetzel. She was 21, going on 22 in September. She was attending Westchester and was really into reading books. At college, he found certain classes extra easy, such as typing. The only reason he found himself taking the class was because he couldn't test out of it. Another class, though it was an elective, was very interesting. Psychology 101. It was taught by a young, white blonde man who had a Brooklyn, New York accent and appeared to be no older than 29. It was in this class he first learned about noted fields of psychology and psychologists, such as B.F. Skinner, Carl Jung, Ivan Pavlov, and others. His law for business class featured Uncle Vince, his accounting 2 teacher, as his instructor once again. In Ken's life outside of work and school, he was attending more lodge meetings to catch up with his fellow Masons. Harold Richards, who was a DeMolay chapter dad, was a member of his lodge, and about to take the role as worshipful master. The current sitting WM of his lodge was Sheldon Scott, a dark-haired 35-year-old from Delaware County, Pennsylvania originally, who worked in banking. They were looking to fill the senior steward role in the line of officers. Ken was suggested to fill that role for the upcoming year. Ira Zimmerman, who was Ken's catechism instructor, was filling the role of one of the officers working his way up to master. He was moving into the senior deacon role. He was also very eager to encourage Ken to consider an active role in the lodge, and asked Ken, at times when he would start to seek a role as an officer in the lodge. Harold wanted Ken to let him know by April whether he was interested in moving up in the chairs of the lodge. Ken was leaning toward accepting the opportunity to fill the opening of the senior steward role. He learned that this was traditionally the person who provided the refreshments at the end of lodge meetings and functions. Ken was okay with that. The band that Ken was with was still rehearsing their songs regularly. It was in April that they scored a gig at a local Irish pub called O'Rourke's. They had recently purchased new speakers with their own money, with each member, including Ken, chipping in.